Yeah, so it goes right along with being fooled with the screens, everything that's going on, right? So there you have someone who's a con artist, which I've already, mentioned in these earlier videos, the conning efforts that people have. My thing with helping people is, everything's done from the gut. A lot of times you could tell the funeral thing, the my kid has cancer thing. I've seen a lot of different ones like that. I don't support those because you have no idea. You don't know what's going on. Okay, guys, we're back again with the PEM podcast. Another week has passed. I'm Worthington, and it's been an interesting week. Noticing a lot of things. I'm noticing that there is a lot of pain in the world and a lot of misery. Not something new, like that wasn't something that we're all aware of, but I'm really seeing it, how close it is to home and how many people just around in the community and friendship groups and stuff like that are really struggling and suffering and having a difficult time with life. A lot of miserable, sad, lonely, even desperate people out there, and I'm really seeing that more and more. And it's kind of interesting. It's really interesting world out there. How many people do you know that attempt to give advice out of good intentions, out of goodwill, wanting to see you do better, and then giving what they believe is their best advice? And the question is that advice actually valuable? Is that advice any good? And it's interesting to see certain people giving advice that really mean well and that the advice really isn't all that great, honestly. And assessing the source of the advice is really important. One of the examples I made in speaking to someone recently was, you could be talking to someone who's a multimillionaire, financial advisor, extremely successful in their financial career in that aspect of life. And you ask them advice about finances and, improving your own financial and economic circumstance. And that advice is probably going to be really good. But then you go back to that same person, you ask them relationship advice, romantic relationship advice, things like that. And this person maybe is on their third divorce, had to give away half of their, belongings and assets because of that circumstance they were in. And they're not so great at that area of life. And sometimes we can fall into this, sometimes giving, people multiple hats and having them give advice or mentorship or guidance in areas that really isn't their strong point. And I've seen this happen with people a lot of times because they're really strong in one point. They think that they're strong in all points. I've actually seen this a lot in martial arts. With some of the higher level people that are really, great coaches, great martial artists, very, very skilled, but giving advice in other areas may not be their strong suit, and it really just depends. And so you have to assess the person in front of you and see what they're good at and see if they're really doing well in that particular area of life that you're asking, advice about. If you're inquiring, sometimes people offer. I'm talking about more where you really are interested in maybe what the person's asking or what you're asking them, and you're interested in gaining some insight. Are you asking the right person? Are you receiving advice from someone who's really going to give you effective, ideas and perspectives on how to improve your circumstance? And that's really important. And oftentimes I see a lot of the blind leading the blind, and seeing people who are just as miserable give advice about, hey, this is what I did, you should do what I'm doing, and that can be, maybe not such a great situation. So that's just one caveat there. It's just kind of sad to see how many people are struggling and how difficult it is for so many people out there. So I'm noticing that this week. And on another note that kind of is in alignment with that, though, is another side of this where people's lives are difficult and things are not the way they want them to be, and the challenges seem to be maybe getting the better of them, and they aren't really taking steps that would make an improvement. Maybe sometimes they aren't taking any steps at all, just kind of stewing in a miserable state and not making any types of changes or efforts to move the needle in some direction. And I know several people that are in that circumstance. And a lot of times that just comes down to avoidance and, blocking out the problem and numbing out the pain in one way or another through some sort of distraction and just continuing on, and nothing gets better. So those are some observations I had this week. Definitely, a bit more eye-opening for me just to see how many people. That was what was shocking to me. And I went to, be involved with a couple new, I guess, communal groups out there. Someone invited me to something, and I got to see a lot of different personalities and interact with folks, and very interesting stuff. So, for those of you that are really struggling out there with different mental, emotional, spiritual challenges, struggling maybe at work, struggling through different things like that, and people are trying to help, people want, and I understand that I'm not saying these people aren't really trying to help. I think they're really trying to help. And on some level, maybe there's a psychology with us all that, hey, I'm still standing, I'm still here, so my advice must be valid. And I think there's someone, I had a friend who used to make that kind of argument about some of the egoic interactions we have with others and things like this. This idea that we as an organism, if we're still alive, there must be some value to what we're doing. And there's a bit of faulty logic there, because what we could be doing is actually working against ourselves, but our vitality and certain other systems that are continuing our ability to survive are still intact as well. And so it's not anywhere near optimum, but in some ways, maybe there's a part of ourselves, sometimes even the subconscious, that latches onto something, perhaps, and it's just a theory, thinking that because we're still here and because we're still surviving, that this was a successful mindset, successful practice, and that's definitely a faulty logic. So, just interesting what goes on, and seeing the fact that a lot of people are struggling out there and really aren't getting the help that they really need. So, the hope is change all that, especially with psychedelics that I'm working on and things like that, and start to give people hopefully really solid advice that can make a real difference in their life. But I'll tell you this one thing, and this may also be a really important part of this, and why it relates to the last thing I just said about people not really taking action, not really making efforts to change things, is that the mental, emotional, spiritual skill and healing and finding a peaceful and rewarding, happy life is something that takes effort. It isn't given. It doesn't just exist because you're born. And so it is a very intensive, lengthy efforting process to achieve a happy, peaceful life, and to cover all your bases, including financial, relationship-based, your spiritual, internal world, so many aspects, including the 8 root fundamentals of mental, emotional, and spiritual health that are so much, so important for really achieving that, and aren't just based around going to some doctor and getting a pill, going to someone and just having a talk session and that does it, or going to someone and having a talk session once a week for the next 5 years and now it's all better. It's actually far more complicated than that. A lot of effort involved. So wanted to share that as we get started. Let's go ahead and do a reaction to these videos, see what we got coming at us today.
When you look at Ryan Garcia, he looks like a Barbie doll. He does everything wrong, but he relies on his reflexes, his physicality, his hand speed, what was gifted to him by God. But he does everything wrong. Devin does everything right. Liston did everything right. Liston has probably the best jab ever. Devin Haney probably has the best jab right now. Ali looked like a Barbie doll. Muhammad Ali got dropped leaning back versus Henry Cooper before his fight with Liston. They say you got dropped by Henry Cooper. You about to go into a coma fighting Liston. Ryan Garcia getting dropped by Tank Davis and Luke Campbell leaning back. You're looking at him like Devin Haney's gonna whip your ass. When Ali was at the weigh-in, they thought he was crazy, so they checked his blood pressure and his heart. They wanted to see if he lost his damn mind. Come to find out, he was totally sane. Ryan Garcia just went through an evaluation. I'm just saying history tends to repeat itself, and I've seen it before. That's why I'm not tripping.
Ryan Garcia just fooled the entire internet into thinking he was crazy.
Come on, God, you really thought I was crazy?
While thousands of boxing fans bought into Ryan Garcia's tactics, he was strategically trolling everyone to get an advantage on his opponent. Even the supposed beer that he drank in his weigh-ins was just apple juice.
Oh, shit.
He was so confident in his plan that he reportedly betted $2 million on himself to beat Devin Haney, which is not illegal under the Nevada Athletic State Commission, and earned himself $12 million. He had this planned all along.
This is why people need to stop believing everything on the internet and stop, living in a false reality. Everybody looking at it like, oh, he just crazy, it's a conspiracy, it's this, it's that. Had everybody thinking I was crazy. Back in the day, who's the crazy one now? Y'all was tripping, not me. You guys were tripping. I was the one that was actually with sanity.
Is Ryan Garcia the best troll we've seen since 6ix9ine?
Yeah, I think a lot of people employed this tactic in the public scene. I think Mayweather was also employing that tactic with his bad boy, kind of the bad guy persona, where a lot of people were showing up to Mayweather's fights and watching his fights in the hopes that he would get knocked out. I think there was a lot of people, and I don't think that his over-the-top arrogance was 100% who he is. So maybe this guy went even further with it. I didn't follow everything he did. We did do some reactions to some things he was talking about with child trafficking and things, and he was a little over the top emotional on some of that stuff, and maybe that was part of his act that he was putting on. And it's an effective tool to get people riled up and people really latch onto this stuff. I don't think it's all just. He makes a comment about the internet. He could have done that in person as well. There was a time when we didn't have the internet. There's always been acting, so people can act. I mean, that's what a con artist does, right? Con artists and con artists have been around for a long time. They're putting on an act. They're confidence men or confidence women are putting on an act that this is who they are. They don't need to be on the internet to do that. But the internet allows us, where I would say it starts to get even crazier with the technology we have today, of course, is the ability to edit things and change, the way something comes off in a video with technological editing and AI now and all this stuff that you can't necessarily do even with an in-person acting option, So it's definitely created a world. But people, this is why I keep saying, more and more, I just don't buy into things right away. It doesn't matter if it's on the internet or not. I want to investigate. I want to get all the background information I can get. I want to vet the information, go through a critical thinking process. This is what I've been saying, since the beginning of this channel, really. And the problem that we have even in the political level is that people can just make statements now and everybody just takes it as fact. So everyone just takes whatever comes out of your mouth as truth. When and why did that start happening? At what point did we forget that people lie as a society and as a community? At what point did we forget that people can, act and give a false impression and, put on a performance for others? It's so strange that everything on a screen seems to be taken at face value. And so I totally, it's a great outcome to see someone pointing out and more people starting to point that out. But I think it's also going to get tougher and tougher, really, as we see the AI take over and its abilities to really mimic so many, aspects of this visual presentation that goes on the screen. That's going to be a difficult world. But again, you just have to apply the same, critical thinking mentality to that, and then that way you can avoid being completely fooled by this. And so, I guess, Ryan Garcia there's just really calling people out, calling them all fools, which they are. And just buying into this off of some face value presentation. A lot of these are like snippets. A lot of these are without the further deeper context, which is what by design he's doing there, including the beer, right? The idea that the beer is filled with apple juice. So you just take that at face value. And he's engaging in a combat sport. So it is really the art of war. So deception is a huge part of that. So, I mean, it is pretty ridiculous that on some level, a large portion of the population is so juvenile and naive that everything is just taken at some sort of face value. And then everyone runs away with it. Oh, look at that. Oh, you hear what he just said? And yeah, it's pretty bad. It honestly, it's sad because of those people. And I would say it's probably the majority. That's where Orwell, kind of labeled the sheep, which we now sometimes call sheeple. in the book Animal Farm. Unfortunately, it seems like that's the majority, and that's why they're so easily manipulated and swayed into following, in some cases, really terrible movements. That's how the Nazis came into power. That's how you get the Chinese Communist Party into power. You get people like Putin into power. You get all these tyrants into power because you've got a bunch of sheeple who follow this stuff and think that they just take at face value that whoever is running this movement has their best interest in mind without actually applying any real critical thinking skills that go several layers deeper. And I think that goes with my opening statement about people just being lazy. Maybe they don't even want to, don't bother doing any research, don't bother going the easiest thing you can do is just accept whatever's in front of you as face value and just go along with that. But that can have really terrible consequences. I just had a friend robbed last night. She was robbed for quite a bit of money because she took a guy home who claimed to be someone that she took at face value was who he said he was. And when she went into her restroom, he went into her purse, stole all her money, all her cannabis products, everything, ran out the door and took off in his car. She lost about $800. So, it can be a really costly thing to do that. You need to have a high level awareness. And unfortunately, the sheeple of this world, and I'm not calling her that, it's unfortunate she has some things that led her to do those things. She's one of those people that's suffering and wants friends. That's what makes that so painful for her. She's looking for friends. She's looking for someone who pays attention to her, notices her, makes her part of a community. And the minute she felt that, she, was vulnerable, and it put her in this position. So really, really sad there. But the other levels that I'm talking about is really just a bunch of laziness, I would say, and people, I guess wanting to be entertained, or I guess wanting to believe. That's a dangerous thing too, to want to believe something and then apply bias to it and then say, and then not dig deeper because you just want to believe what you want to believe. Those also can have dire consequences. So whole world there about critical thinking and awareness and the effort it takes. It takes effort. You got to stop other things and focus and do some research, click a few things in Google. Nowadays that's where everything's at, but you can't trust everything that's just on Google. So then you got to do further, deeper research there and dig into things. And that takes time and effort. And a lot of people just don't like to put effort into things. It's just too much effort. Rather just be lazy. So, good for him. I'm glad he manipulated everyone. That is what the Toltecs called the art of stalking.
Why don't we see any land when we're looking down at the ocean from the space station?
Why? Because you're over top of ocean.
Okay, well, don't you think they could be fooling us with this picture?
Okay, I give you this.
Wait, watch the picture. Watch the picture.
I know that they've airbrushed some stuff.
It's not airbrushed. This is us in our front yard and a solar panel, and we tricked you, showing you how easy. We have zero budget. They have $65 million a day, and I tricked you. What about this? NASA says, these are new planets. Okay. Would you believe? Why would you believe that?
Why wouldn't you?
Because they're frying pans. They're the bottom of frying pans. Again, zero budget. Zero budget.
Wow.
Here are 4 moons.
Good at that.
And before the hand picks up the moon, tell me, is it sphere or not a sphere? Is that a sphere? Quick.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Well, it looks like a sphere, but it's actually a half a cup. How about this one? Is this one a sphere?
You're showing us half a sphere then on all of them.
It looks like a sphere, but it's not either. It's flat. What I'm saying is, first, even if they were all spheres, it doesn't dictate the shape of the Earth. I've been lying to you this entire time. I'm on the space station. Okay? Prove me wrong. I'm on the space station.
And I'm in Hollywood right now too.
Yeah, but that's a painting. That's not even a real picture.
You're floating, Dave.
Look here. The Earth is a globe. Here's the proof. I got this cartoon over here, right? The Earth is a globe.
Okay. So there's a little bit of a red flag maybe at the end of the video there that this guy might be a flat earther. And the flat earth idea is absurd. We've known that the Earth is not flat for thousands of years. But as far as what's really being conducted in space and what information we're being fed about what's being conducted in space, yeah, that of course could be manipulated, absolutely. And the only thing I would say about that, this is what I would say. The people working on the space programs, there's thousands and thousands of them. This is one of the problems I had with some of the COVID conspiracy stuff and certain things. It's one thing to manage conspiracies at, a certain insulated level. And you have to have extreme consequences involved. I mean, people will kill you. People will make your life, absolutely destroy your life. You'll end up in prison for the rest of your life, things like that. With those type of consequences, you can kind of get people in line. Let me tell you, it's very hard to keep secrets, guys. It is very hard to keep secrets. And people talk. People just talk. There has to be so much protocol around things and a heavy, heavy, heavy consequence in order to hold things in. I mean, you could see even what happened with Snowden. Now with Snowden, right, he uncovered a huge conspiracy about the surveillance circumstance within the United States and the West in general, and these global superpowers and what they're really doing with information. And that's shocking to know that there had to be a certain number of people engaged in that activity of basically gaslighting the public or deceiving the public or not sharing accurate information about what is really going on with our privacy and our rights as citizens. And so the conspiracy there was pretty vast. And there's been other ones that are fairly vast, but a lot of them, have come out at some point, including that one. And then some of them are really deep, like the murder and assassination of JFK, super deep. Although there was a book called Family of Secrets that seems to expose a lot of interesting stuff, factual information, not just not just theory, but actual memos. And it must have taken I forget the author's name on that one. It must have taken him many, many years of doing the research to back up all of his writing with actual factual memos from the FBI, from the CIA, from wherever he could glean information about what was going on with the Bushes at the time and what was going on with, Lee Harvey Oswald and all these people at those key moments. But he was able to, discover some things. So when we're talking about, the large-scale efforts of people involved with the space, programs, and people that I guess that JPL and things like that probably do have secret clearances, depending on what they're working on. You could have a certain amount of, I believe there could be some manipulation of information, but to what degree and to where is that manipulating information? I think it would mean more around the tech and things like that, and less around things like these pictures of planets and things where it's you got a lot that's not really classified information. That's really secretive. So I don't know that that's an issue. And listen, if you've ever flown high enough in a plane, you can see the curvature of the Earth. If you've ever, done that, there's so many ways you can prove that the Earth is round. If we're getting into that flat Earth level, which is what it seemed like that guy was headed towards, what I would say is there's a lot of layers to what was going on in that video. But one thing that's absolutely true is how much information and perception can be manipulated on the screen, especially in social media, especially around all kinds of concepts, whether they're political or social issues or things like that. I think to apply it to space programs is, I don't know how far the manipulation goes there, if at all. I don't think that it really serves anyone. Here's the thing: this tech that you're using right now, it's all based off of satellites. Those satellites are orbiting the Earth. I don't know where the flat earthers, what their theory is for what is causing that, but all of the physics in the world, all the mathematics supports that the Earth is round, and that that these structures within space are spherical in nature. And that's the way the gravity actually operates. So I'm not sure why people get so hung up on this idea of flat earthing stuff. Is really a little strange to me, because experience just doesn't support that's any different. And if you look at like a droplet of water, droplets of water tend to be spherical unless they're attached to something and the surface tension gives them that teardrop shape, which is because they've been pulled off of something. But when they're in the middle of the air and their cohesive structure shapes them into a sphere, you can kind of see that that's the same thing that's going to happen in mid-space. Of course, that happens when they're falling, and if you can catch them in a falling mode, you'll see them in a spherical state. So I just think I could probably stay here forever and come up with different ways that you can experientially understand that the planets, the moons, the stars, they're all spherical, and there's really nothing really too earth-shattering about that. And I have no idea why people even focus on the flat Earth idea. But outside of that, there's a very big concern about how much people are being manipulated by the screen time they're spending, what's being fed to us through these devices, because he just demonstrated how powerful it is that your perception can be manipulated. And people like MC Escher, artists way before there was internet or screens, were depicting that with drawings and paintings. So we know that now this medium that incorporates video and stuff that seems to mimic reality is a very powerful effect on human perception, this idea that everything is real that we're watching. And clearly that is a very dangerous idea, depending on what's being put before you. In some ways it can just be entertaining. That was kind of entertaining what he was able to do, but in others, when we're talking about politics and things like this, could be dangerous. And the problem is then we have governments who use that idea that something's dangerous, and then we have to potentially outlaw or ban some form of freedom of speech and expression. And I think that is extremely slippery slope, because the idea is, that we're not smart enough as humans to figure out what's real and what's not. And I hate to say it, but maybe we're not, is what it appears to me, because this is all kind of coming together with what I've been saying about people being lazy and not being willing to dig deeper and willing to really do research around things and even question what they're seeing on a screen. It's different when you see something real in front of you, concrete, right there in real life, versus seeing something on the screen. It's totally different. Somehow we've gotten to a point where we equate the two things. And that's been happening for a long time, because that's happened in the martial arts world. With people who don't understand martial arts at all, I've had people come to me who are interested in self-defense and are like, 110-pound woman tells me, hey, I want to train this martial art because I want to be able to beat up and subdue a 300-pound athletic man. Well, you think the laws of physics go away because you learned a martial art? It's ridiculous, but all of that really comes back to movies and the way violence has been cast and shown in movies, which is a manipulation of what actual reality is. And through the screen, somehow we've, equated reality, what's going on the screen. And I have to say, it's a really interesting, fuzzy line, because even with myself, I love movies. I love the art of storytelling, really. And I've mentioned one that was really powerful didactic tool was this movie called 3,000 Years of Longing, which did an amazing job of explaining what true, authentic love really is. So that's an awesome use of the technology, an awesome use of the medium, and for positive teaching tool, I would say. Whereas you can have other uses, and that was one of the complaints that Charles Bukowski had and wrote about in his 3-page essay, Bad Trip, where he basically equated and talked about LSD and television in the same essay, saying that, they came into existence around the same time, and we messed up television and outlawed LSD, and really the television could have been this amazing tool for building awareness, and LSD certainly is that if used properly, and the way that our society took those two tools and what we did with them was really kind of sad. And so there's obviously a really negative side to this new medium of screen time and this increasing power of manipulation of reality on a screen. Screen is not reality, though. And it certainly fuels people's perception of reality as per the example of someone's perception and ideas around martial arts. So it's going to continue to be a major problem. And this is, at the level of a flat screen. What's going to start happening with virtual reality? What's going to start happening with immersive mediums like that is, I don't even know what the impact's going to be. Eventually to the point of almost of the real Matrix, where you have some sort of insert, some sort of, chip in your brain, something like that, where you can even mimic physical sensations, taste, sound, smells, all the five senses. I don't. Then what is reality anymore? That's going to be wild. So, very interesting topic there. One we could talk about for days.
So I understand what you're doing, and I'm sorry that you're going through this. However, we cannot have you guys walking in the middle of the roadway. I'm sorry that you're going through this. I'm not trying to be inhumane or discredit what you're going through at all. I understand you're probably going through a lot of pain, but you can't be out here walking in the middle of the roadway. When did this happen? Was that your daughter? Your niece? What's your first name? You said your niece? What's her name?
Maria.
Maria? Okay. And when did she pass?
3 days ago.
3 days ago? Okay. So in September, did you have another niece named Maria that passed?
Huh? Yes,
You and your 2 sons were on the other side doing the same thing, collecting money for a funeral.
No.
You're lying to me.
No.
I don't like being lied to. You should be ashamed of yourself trying to do this in front of your 2 kids.
It's first time.
I recognize you from last time I talked to you. You're lying to yourself, you're lying to me, and you're lying in front of your kids. This is the kind of mom you want to be for your kids? Next time I see you out here with your 2 kids, I will be sure that you're going to get every citation I can think of.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, so it goes right along with being fooled with the screens, everything that's going on, right? So there you have someone who's a con artist, which I've already, mentioned in these earlier videos, the conning efforts that people have. My thing with helping people is, everything's done from the gut. A lot of times you could tell. First of all, I'm not going to go with something like this where they've got the billboard and the funeral thing, the my kid has cancer thing. I've seen a lot of different ones like that. I don't support those because you have no idea. You don't know what's going on, and clearly you can see here. I've even had people talk about common ones that I've seen around the local neighborhoods where we're at, where people are holding those signs about the kid with the cancer, or the person who died at the funeral, getting donations for the funeral. And I wonder what the laws are around that. I think that might actually be illegal. I don't know. Yeah, because you're actually at some level establishing a charity, I guess. So I wonder, I don't know enough about that, guys. We need an attorney to comment on what the laws are and actual criminal laws around that. I think maybe that cop could have arrested her there if she had enough proof. Maybe she just didn't have proof. She just recognized. So it's just her word as a cop versus having maybe some sort of camera footage and pictures taken of her at the previous dates and actually lining up a case to show that she's actually conning people. I do think that there's a legal concern there for the people doing that. But this is why I'm not big on a lot of charities in general. As you dig into the charity world, right, there are legal requirements for official charities, of course. And again, I'm no expert on this. We need the attorneys to chime in here, anyone who has the legal expertise. But, I think it's only a requirement of 10% of all received proceeds for a nonprofit actually need to go to the cause. And the rest can all go to, costs and salaries and those things, and then people get caught sometimes doing these extravagant trips and things and trying to write it off as part of the expense in their nonprofit, and then they get in trouble. And trust in this world is something that I don't just give out freely. Learned that the hard way over years and years and years of time. I actually was very resistant to that because of my family dynamic and trauma that I experienced there around my father's very rigid perspective on people, very cold. He was very, very cold. He didn't trust people, and he would cut them off at the first sign of anything, and I resisted and resented that as a child to some degree. I felt like it was very judgmental. I felt like it went against, certain Christian teachings I had been exposed to about not judging folks, and I just didn't like it. Didn't resonate with me very well. So after plenty of life experience, I started to understand my father. Now I don't adopt my father's way. My father's way was very cold and very rigid, and it's not what I do. But what I do is I watch people carefully, and I watch what they do, and I only give them a certain amount of power to begin with, and I see how that's going before I go from there. So that means for me to really give someone any money in a circumstance like that, first of all, there's so many people I could help. There's so many people that need help that are in my sphere of influence that I can only give so much, especially under whatever strains I'm going under myself at the time. The saying goes, you can't pour from an empty cup. So first you kind of have to, take care of yourself and make sure you're in a position of abundance that you can help and support people. But secondly, there's just so many people that I'm aware of that I know actually need help versus someone on the corner of the street that's got a sign that's saying something. It's just, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that unless, for whatever reason, I really succeed in this world and I make it to that next layer in the layer cake where I'm really at a higher level economically and time-wise with less time constraint and need to focus on constantly building and working on things I'm working on and fighting the fights I'm fighting. Then in those circumstances, maybe then I would go and investigate something like this and feel it out before I gave money. You know what I mean? I don't know. There's just ways that I would approach this stuff. Same thing goes for charities. Make sure you dig into the charity, see what they're about, see if they're fully transparent. If there's any red flags about their transparency, that they're not, showing you everything and their books aren't wide open for people to look at, then don't give them money. There's just, like I started this whole episode with, there are so many sad and miserable and struggling people out there and people in difficult situations. And you can help. There's just a lot out there that are really easily verifiable. For instance, sometimes I do give strangers money, but I'll tell you what, you can tell sometimes. Like if I walk up on a stranger and they smell really bad, and this is someone you could tell is truly, truly on the street, like people don't, you can see people can wear costumes, they can do all kinds of things. And I guess if you're easily fooled, if you can't see what's in front of you, don't engage in this activity. But I've been involved in certain businesses that really required me to develop my ability to assess people and to really be able to feel what's going on with someone. And so, there's certain folks that I help, and I can tell like this person, can use this money. And so I'll help them out. Especially ones like these with the signs. See, that woman had the sign out there. The ones I see with the signs too, I'll tell you, a lot of times I'll see them like 3-4 of those people out there. So it's like an organization. You know what I mean? So you're like feeding into an organization of most likely con artists. Most likely the event that they're saying isn't real at all. Yeah, I'm not even going to, no. First of all, they've already got somewhat of a support system. They got people around them. They got at least more than a lot of other people have, that you could better divert your efforts and funds to someone else. And I think those people are pretty easily found out there. Don't get fooled by some sign. Who cares about the sign? And to be honest with you, there's so many people going through horrendous stuff. You can't let your heartstrings get pulled by this stuff. It's just, if you're not close to it, you didn't know that happened, and you have no way of knowing it, and you're in a busy day, and you're not in that position. Like some of these influencers that go out giving people money, pretty sure those influencers, they probably do their homework, make sure that person really needs it. I wouldn't go and do this kind of stuff for someone, come to find out later I just got fooled. Dig in, learn, and who that person is, if you're one of those people that's on that path. But for the rest of us who are busy, right? There's easily found people. If that's where your heart's at, you want to help someone, you can find them easily. I would not feed into one of those where there's a bunch of people holding signs and stuff. No way. Yeah. For that reason right there. And it's not just a pessimism. It's just, like I said, just in the matter of fact that they have multiple people around them and they've got more support than other people out there. Find someone else who really needs it if you're doing the street thing. So anyway, that's my take there.
America should be feeling humiliated right now. China made an app so popular that the government has to ban it. That means communist China beat free market America at capitalism, all right? That's like your whole thing, America, and you lost. This is as bad as that time that Asian dude won the hot dog eating contest 6 times in a row. China beat us so bad at mindless entertainment, we need the government to save us. Oh no, TikTok's too popular. Now we're addicted to our phones that are also made in China.
What choice do our leaders have here? China's using TikTok to influence people.
Oh, trust me, I know. Before I used TikTok, I was a white guy in Iowa named Mike Sullivan, okay? Look at me now.
Wait, is that true?
Is that true? No, you idiots. That's just how susceptible we all are to misinformation. And it doesn't matter what app you use, okay? I wouldn't be surprised if the next election is swung by Uber Eats. Like, here's your spaghetti, vote for Donald Trump. Okay, I will. Whatever you say, Mr. Spaghetti.
Hey, Ronnie, you're not being fair. Americans aren't gullible. It's that TikTok is an incredibly powerful tool for spreading misinformation.
Yeah, because the misinformation is entertaining. Facebook has just as much misinformation, but it's boring as shit. How am I supposed to get behind conspiracies that come from your great aunt who can't even pop and lock?
Yeah, well, that's exactly it right there, guys. Yeah, entertainment is king, you know. Entertainment is huge, and if you're able to be entertaining, that seems to be what's worth more than anything to us in this society. That's what's happened. We pay our entertainers the most money. That's who we pay the most money, right? You see it in the, sporting events and athletes. You see it in the comedians. You see it in the actors in Hollywood. You see it in all that. Right? Where's the biggest money go? It goes to that which entertains us. And in other cases, it goes into that which sustains us, things like as important as energy, sources of energy and things like that, and transportation and really important basic things that make our society function. We put a lot of money into that, and then the rest seems to go into entertainment. Anything that's about wisdom or really about solid learning and spending the time doing the things that are rather boring that would benefit us and improve our lives and make us better people, we're not too interested in that. And that comes back to the sheeple again. So the sheeple are just going to win this world, I guess, until we finally just go extinct from our stupidity, because I think that might be where we're headed, guys. Hopefully not, but we do a lot of stupid shit as human beings, and so I think this whole episode has been about how lazy we are, really, to some degree. There's been a little bit about trauma and about, people being desperate and how they can get manipulated. Mostly that had something to do with my story there, but also in the story of the false kind of charity situation there, giving people money. But a lot of it has to do with a lack of critical thinking and a lack of any type of real effort in trying to figure out what's real and really applying critical thinking, which takes some time and it takes some energy, some energy and effort. So majority of the population doesn't want to do that. And then we've got an app like TikTok that's really able to get people's attention, just simply get their attention. And then because they are that mindless, then they start to manipulate the information, and that's enough to swing people in directions of, where they're going to vote, what their political alliances are with. I mean, that's a frightening world that we live in that. But does that mean we should ban TikTok? That's a whole nother discussion. And I'm not into living in a world where we do that, just because it's dangerous if we don't. I think that's a really bad way to approach the world, by trying to always make it safe. But that's about all I got to say on this one, guys. Go, as usual, go to psychedelics.com. There's an event this weekend in Vegas called PsychCon. It's going to be a psychedelic convention about psychedelic treatments and all things psychedelic and mushroom growing and mushroom microdosing and a bunch of crazy stuff. So I'm going to be out there with Psychedelist and promoting their stuff. So anyway, that's it for this week, guys. See you next time. Okay, guys, hopefully you've been liking the content we've been providing so far. We've been covering a lot of different topics here. And, for long form, you're checking us out here on YouTube. Also, you can find us on Rumble for short form. You can find us on Instagram and TikTok at ThePemPod. Also, be sure to check out psychedelist.com. There we're providing a lot of different services. We've actually made further progress on the development of the website, which eventually will be an app. You can find treatment options there, including retreat centers, clinical facilities, individual trip sitters, clinicians, facilitators, integration coaches. We've got all that up now, and then we've got something called the Learning Center where you can go if you don't really know that much about psychedelic therapy or you want to learn something about a particular niche there. We will be including that soon. So go ahead and check out all of those areas there if you guys want, and just happy to be here with you. So hopefully have you here taking in more of our content in the near future. Thanks. It'd be great if you left a like, and also if you'd leave a comment would be awesome. We'd love to interact with you guys in the comments below. Also, if you would like to have me react to a video that you choose and that you think would be a good one for me to take a look at, or even a personal video or request of some sort, you can email us at thepempod@gmail.com, and I'd love to hear from you and interact with you there.